It's already been decided. The Buccaneers are winning the NFC. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you at least 3 days a week for, well, one more week. And then we go back to 5 days a week, but I'm here along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Sports Illustrated points to the Bucs as one of the NFC favorites while looking to a rookie as a breakout candidate, and the Mayfield Bowles duo hasn't won everyone over yet. That's all coming up in a little bit, but I want to start today's show off with an interesting situation that was sent to me by Callum Wilson, who works over at Legends as well as Covers, and they did a simulation of this upcoming NFL season with a supercomputer. Now, that involved 10,000 different simulations and breaking down all the results to create which teams had the best or worst odds to win this season. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it meant emerging as the top team in the NFC. The simulation showed that the Bucs have over a 70% chance to make the playoffs, a nearly 25% chance to win in the divisional round, a 13.5% chance to win the NFC Championship game, and a 6.98% chance to win the Super Bowl. All in all, the supercomputer deemed the Bucs the most likely NFC champion in 2025. They have the fourth best odds in the league to win the title and the best odds of any team in the NFC. Covers.com spokesperson James Bisson said, quote, "Optimistic Tampa Bay fans will be thrilled at their chances of winning the big one, with our supercomputer giving the Bucs a whopping 6.98% chance of winning the Super Bowl. At the time of writing, that makes them the fourth favorites by our numbers, only trailing the Buffalo Bills 15.68%, Baltimore Ravens 9.21%, and Kansas City Chiefs 8.08%. That's in stark comparison to their odds at the sports books, where the Bucs are currently no lower than the 14th favorites to go all the way." End quote. Obviously, this prediction would be fantastic if it came true. To have the Bucs represent the NFC in the Super Bowl and a chance to win their third in franchise history, that's what every fan wants and what most places don't give the Bucs a chance to do. With that said, even with the supercomputer, the advances in AI and all of that, you still have to win on the field. And while the Bucs have the best odds based on 10,000 simulations, it's still just under a 7% chance that they win the Super Bowl. While that's better than teams like the Jets and Giants, who have a 0.14 and 0.13% chance, there are billions of variables that can happen in reality across the NFL landscape. And I'm sure with 10,000 simulations that plenty of those came up. Baker Mayfield might have missed a bunch of games or most of the season in some of those simulations. Maybe Penix is the second coming of Michael Vick in a bunch of those simulations. At the end of the day, all this says is what we have all known for a long time. And that's that the Bucs are legit contenders in the NFC, and they should be in those conversations for the best team in the conference, along with the usual suspects. The Eagles, for instance, are the defending champions, and they have just a 5.44% chance of repeating. The Packers have the second best odds in the NFC at 6.58%. The Niners are at 5.77%. Cowboys at 5.39, Rams at 2.56, Lions at 1.94. But it's the Bucs that are never mentioned when those other teams come up. Why is that? I feel like a broken record talking about how it's because Baker Mayfield isn't beloved by the national media, or that the Bucs aren't a sexy team to talk about. Their head coach is not a big personality. They don't have any guys that are in your face or stay at the forefront of people's minds because they all do the same thing. They show up, they do their job, and they go home. They don't have any wild or outlandish personalities that grab headlines like they did back when they had Brady and Gronk and Antonio Brown. They're really an old school lunch pail kind of team, and that's because they've adopted the personality of their coach, and that's how Todd Bowles is. He's not going to go out there and talk about eating people's kneecaps or scream at the media after a game or be named to the sexiest man alive list in People magazine. As a result, that's not who his team is. What surprised me the most about these simulations was the New Orleans Saints. Now, they have a 3.98% chance of winning the Super Bowl, along with a 9.34 projected win total. Now, I'm not sure what voodoo the supercomputer used there, but for New Orleans to have better odds than the Bengals, Rams, Vikings, and Lions is absolutely wild to me. I mean, shoot, the Falcons' odds are 0.78%, and the Panthers are 0.31%. And I don't think the Saints are better than either one of those teams. But that brings me back to my original point. While this is really cool, it's nice to see the Bucs being among the top teams in the league. It's nice to see them projected as a legitimate NFC favorite. It doesn't mean anything if the team doesn't go out on the field and prove the simulations right. They have to win games on the field. They have to go out there and beat the Falcons in week 1, then turn around and beat the Texans in prime time on the road in week 2. They have to beat the Bills, the Lions, the Rams, the Dolphins on the road. They have to show that they can beat the 49ers and the Eagles. They have to win in prime time. That's all that really matters. And while they have all the talent in the world, if they don't put it together and beat those tough teams, then 10,000 supercomputer simulations are nothing more than a talking point in July. Based on those simulations, the rankings in terms of Super Bowl odds that the Bucs would face this season are 1, 6, 7, 9 twice, 13th, 14th, 15th, 17th, 20th, 22nd, 26th twice, 27th twice, or 27th, 30th twice, and then 31st. That's 5 games against the top 10, 8 games against the top 15. That's tough competition, plain and simple. And as long as the Bucs keep winning the NFC South and getting first place schedules, they're going to continue having tough opponents and tough roads to the playoffs. But that's what, in my opinion, can put them over the top on one of these playoff runs. Maybe it's not this year, though I do think that they're talented enough for it to be this year, but maybe it's next year. Maybe it's the year after. At some point, this is going to pay off because all of these teams that they have to keep facing because of their schedule and winning the division, all of these teams that they keep beating that are the leaders in their own divisions, those are the ones that are going to be the playoff opponents. You know, they can get thrown through a gauntlet where they go, oh, we're going to face the Eagles. We can beat them. We face the Lions. We can beat them. We face the Packers. We can beat them. Vikings. Yep. Commanders. Yep. The only team that concerned me is the Niners. And it's not because I don't think the Bucs are as good. In fact, I think overall the Bucs are more talented than San Francisco is this year. But it's because the Niners have had the Bucs number the same way the Bucs have had the Eagles number. That's a game that I feel is among the top must wins of this season. And it's because they can't ever seem to figure out how to stop San Francisco. The Bucs have won twice against San Fran since 2011. They are 2-6, and they have lost 4 straight. 2019, 2022, 2023, 2024. So taking a look at that and breaking it down a little further, Todd Bowles has yet to beat the Niners since his arrival as defensive coordinator and subsequent promotion to head coach. And the Niners are averaging 29 points a game over that span. The Bucs are averaging 14 and a half. That's not good. So maybe in all these simulations, the Bucs are fortunate enough to not face the 49ers in any of those postseasons, but that's the one team in the NFC that concerns me. Every other top team, the Bucs have been able to handle, just not that one. So again, it's super cool that this supercomputer has predicted the Bucs as having the best odds to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, but supercomputers don't play the games. And supercomputers are not the only ones that are high on the Bucs. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. FanDuel is super easy to use and always where I go to place my parlays for just about every sport, but I also love futures bets and trying to predict champions across all of sports. Right now, the Buccaneers are plus 100 to win the NFC South, minus 158 to make the playoffs, and plus 2,800 to win the Super Bowl. That's behind teams like the Bengals, Vikings, Packers, Niners, Commanders, and Rams. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So supercomputers and Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated, add them both to the list of people or things, in the case of the supercomputer, that are high on the Bucs. Over at SI.com, they are talking about 32 teams in 32 days, and Matt Verderame took a crack at the Buccaneers. He talked about expectations, biggest questions, what other people around the league are saying, breakout candidates, which we're going to get to, and much more. As for what's at stake, Verderame says it's a Super Bowl run. Quote, the Buccaneers are the best team in the NFC South on paper, coming off 4 consecutive division titles. They've done it on the field as well. Now, after failing to make the NFC title game in any of those campaigns, it's time for Tampa to take the next step. With the NFC fairly strong, considering the Eagles, Rams, Lions, Commanders, Vikings, and others, the road to the Super Bowl will be arduous for the Buccaneers, but the path remains reasonable. If Tampa Bay can win games that it'll be favored in and pull off an upset or two, the Buccaneers have a chance to not only host a wildcard game, but perhaps even a divisional affair. The offense should be good enough to beat anybody, considering the ample firepower, and if Bowles has the defense playing even league average football, the Buccaneers are a legitimate threat, end quote. Those are the keys, right? Win the games you're supposed to win. The Jets, the Saints, the Panthers, the Falcons, the Cardinals, Seahawks, Patriots, Dolphins. You pull off an upset or two at Buffalo, at the Rams, at Detroit, you're going to be sitting pretty for the postseason. Then the other key is the defense. Those guys have to ball out this year. They've made improvements. They've added Reddick and Walker Jr. They drafted Morrison and Parrish. They moved Tyke to safety. But it's more about health than anything. I think the defense would have been much better last year if it weren't for the injuries. So if you can stay healthy, plus the upgrades that you've made to your starters as well as your depth, which has vastly improved, then league average football for the defense might even be a disappointment. They should play much better than that. Of course, Verderame points to a rookie on the defensive side of the ball as his breakout player / X-Factor candidate, where he talks about Benjamin Morrison. Quote, Morrison and Jacob Parrish are going to be immediate contributors if all goes well this summer. Coming out of Notre Dame, Morrison is used to playing in big games, and that experience should serve him well on a team that has its eyes on a long playoff run. If Morrison proves a capable starter opposite Jamel Dean, he'll be a huge boost for the Bucks, end quote. Now, I do have to say that I disagree with Verderame on one point. Morrison won't be opposite of Jamel Dean. He'll be gunning for Jamel Dean's job. Now, I think McCollum proved last season that he is the better of the two starting corners, and we also know Jamel Dean's long injury history. Other than that, you know where I stand on Morrison's abilities and the bright future that I think he has in the NFL. So him being a breakout candidate makes a lot of sense. Beyond that, I would say that the X factor is Hassan Reddick for all the reasons that we've talked about. This is a Buccaneers team that's desperate to get to the quarterback, and they've been missing that edge presence for quite some time. If he's the same guy that he was 2 seasons ago, the NFL is in trouble. If he's not, it's going to be more of the same frustrations from the last few years. But when you look at the depth that we've talked about ad nauseum in the secondary, when you bring in Morrison and Parrish, you still have Christian Izien, who is a depth piece. You expect Tyreek Thunderberg to take a step forward. You're bringing back Bryce Hall, who got injured in week 1. He's a solid depth piece that we haven't really talked about because it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, right? He went down in week 1 of 2024. He hasn't been around. We haven't needed to talk about him. You have Antoine Winfield Jr., who's going to be healthy again. You have Levante David coming back. You have a healthy Servassier Dennis. All of these things start to add up. And when you take a look at some of the players that the Bucs were trotting out last year, when they were signing guys off the street like Ryan Neal, or you were having to start KJ Britt and then JJ Russell, and you're having to start, Tavier Thomas as an outside corner because all of these injuries piled up. The Buccaneers defense, especially with the guys up front in Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey and Levante in the middle and Logan Hall sometimes. You bring back Greg Gaines. You bring back Anthony Nelson. These are all really talented guys. It's just the simple fact that when half of your starting defense and then half of your backups are out because of injury, there's only so much you can do. I talked about it on the Pewter Report podcast the other day when, Todd Bowles was asked about playing, off so much with his corners, and it was basically a personnel issue. He didn't have the confidence in the guys that he was forced to put on the field to be able to play press man and to get up in these guys' faces. Now you have Dean and McCollum, but now you also have Benjamin Morrison, and you have Bryce Hall, and you have Tyreek Thunderberg, who had his moments. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. There were some times where you shook your head because he made a rookie mistake, but there are other times you were like, this kid might have something here, where he shows flashes of being a really solid, I'm not going to say good or great, but a really solid corner in the NFL. So you put all that together with Todd Bowles having guys on that defensive side that are so versatile, that can do so many different things, having these pieces that are interchangeable, being able to make these alignments where you could have 6 defensive backs on the field at once, but you can disguise who's doing what, because now you have safeties that can play man coverage and zone coverage. You have corners that can drop back to safety. You have corners that can come in on blitzes. You have safeties that can come in on blitzes. So you never know who's actually going to be in coverage and where you're going to have a blitz coming from. And I think that's what's going to be so special about this defense. But 100%, it starts with the health. If the health isn't there, the defense isn't going to be able to get the stops they need to win these big games against some of these teams like the Bills and the Eagles and the Lions and the Niners and all of those teams that get talked about in these championship conversations, while the Bucs continue to be overlooked. Despite the high praise, there's still some reservations about the Bucs at the top. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Rip flipping things up here on today's episode of Locked On Bucks. And one of the other things that Verderame mentioned in his breakdown of the Bucks was the head coach quarterback ranking that he did at the end of May, where he had Baker Mayfield and Todd Bowles as the 16th ranked duo in the league. He has Bowles as the 20th coach, Mayfield as the 10th quarterback, and they did move up from spot 20 in 2024. Verderame said, quote, Mayfield has become one of the league's better quarterbacks, taking advantage of the tutelage of Dave Canales and Liam Cohen. Mayfield is coming off throwing for 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns to help the Buccaneers win their fourth consecutive NFC South title. If Tampa Bay is going to make a deep playoff run in 2025, it'll likely be because Mayfield continues ascending to stardom, end quote. So, not a lot of credit for Bowles here after winning his third straight division title, something that no coach in Bucs history has ever done. But duos ahead of Baker and Bowles, Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, Sean Payton and Bo Nix, Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love, D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud, Dan Campbell and Jared Goff, Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow, Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels, Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers, and Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. You all know how I feel about Herbert, who Verderame has as his 8th ranked quarterback. Last time, I am pleading with all national NFL media, stop ranking Justin Herbert over Baker Mayfield. I cannot say it any other way. Stop doing it. He's not as good. He has shown that he's not as good. Stop it. Anyway, an NFC personnel evaluator said, quote, I think Mayfield is proof of the concept of coaching matters, systems matter, team build matters. But more than anything, if you can process quickly and get the ball out on time from the pocket, you don't have to be 6'5" to play in this league. He has become a professional quarterback as opposed to a college kid just running plays, end quote. Well, if coaching matters and system matters, then Bowles should be getting more credit than he is here. Verderame was quick to praise Liam Cohen and Dave Canales, but who hired those guys? Who has been the one calling the shots since Arians abruptly retired in 2022? It can't all be the offensive coordinator. Baker and Bowles at this point are in this together, and they need each other to succeed. So I'm not going to say that Carroll and Geno or Harbaugh and Herbert or Quinn and Daniels or definitely not Tomlin and Rodgers are better duos than Bowles and Baker. Yes, some of those head coaches are better than Todd Bowles. I think Mike Tomlin is vastly underappreciated by Steelers fans because they haven't won a playoff game in X amount of years, but the dude keeps making the playoffs with bums. Like, I don't understand how he does it. Like, Mike Tomlin is a phenomenal coach. Pete Carroll has been to multiple Super Bowls. He has won a Super Bowl. He's a great coach. I think Bowles is better than Dan Quinn. I think Bowles is probably a better NFL coach than Jim Harbaugh. But anyway, I digress. I'm not sure any of those quarterbacks are better than Baker Mayfield. I've said my piece on Jaden Daniels and how much I love watching him play, and I think he certainly has a chance to be better than Baker Mayfield. But again, I'm not going to crown a guy after one season. We saw it with Stroud last year. There was regression. We all remember Vince Young's rookie season. He was the next greatest thing to ever happen to the NFL, and then he fell off so hard he was out of the league. You've got to give these guys a little bit of time. It is true, though. You cannot win a Lombardi trophy without a solid head coach quarterback duo. That said, the head coach in Tampa has already won a Lombardi in this town with this franchise as a defensive coordinator. Baker would probably cut off his left arm if it meant that he got to win a Super Bowl. They are a great combination of desire, talent, drive, and motivation. That's not to say that they're perfect or that they don't have things that they can improve upon, because they certainly do. Todd Bowles, I am sure, at some point is going to make a terrible time management decision that I will react to on a live episode after a game and criticize him for. Baker, I'm sure, is going to make a boneheaded throw into triple coverage that's going to get picked off. It's going to happen. They're not perfect, but I certainly think that they are a lot closer to being in the top 10 than they are towards being in the bottom half of the league. And let me tell you, if people in Pittsburgh could swap quarterbacks with the Buccaneers, they would do it in a heartbeat and they wouldn't think twice. Same with about 2/3 of the league. If Cleveland could take that trade back, they would. If Las Vegas could have gotten Baker instead of Geno Smith, they would. Baker keeps getting better each and every season. Bowles, believe it or not, keeps getting better each and every season. And don't come at me with the struggles of the defense last year. You know where I stand on that. I just talked about it. There's only so much that you can do with the hand that you're dealt. You know, if I'm asked to cook dinner for my family and I look in the cupboard and all I have is, rice and a can of soup and, pasta, and I look in the fridge and I got nothing, there's not a whole lot I'm going to be able to do with those ingredients. And I'm a trained chef. Some of you longtime everydayers remember that about me. So there's only so much Bowles was going to be able to do with the ingredients that he had last season, because guys kept getting hurt. So they just need this team to stay healthy in order to reach their potential, because the coach and the quarterback cannot do it by themselves. But they are a lot closer to reaching that mountaintop than I think a lot of people realize. The supercomputer realizes it. Matt Verderame is starting to, lean in that direction. He's talking about how this is a team that can make a Super Bowl run this year. And it starts with Bowles and Baker. But it doesn't end there. That offensive line needs to stay healthy and even take a step forward. Evan and I talked about it on yesterday's show. They have the potential to be the best offensive line in the league. Got to stay healthy. Have to stay healthy. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, God forbid they go down again this year. Now, if they do, you have Emeka Egbuka and Jalen McMillan. Hopefully McMillan stays healthy. But that was the biggest Achilles heel for the Buccaneers last season. It was health. It wasn't performance. It wasn't decisions. It wasn't specific plays. It was health. There's only so much you can do with the ingredients you have in front of you. And Jason Light went to the store. He stocked the cupboard. He stocked the fridge. Now Bowles and Baker get to go in the kitchen, and they're going to whip up a real nice meal. That's going to do it for this episode. We will be back tomorrow for a 4th of July episode. Until then, please check out everything going on Twitter at LockedOnBucks, at JYarko_Bucks. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube with those notifications turned on. Please like and share the episode. It does help other Bucks fans find the show. Make sure you are following on all podcast platforms. Become a Locked On Bucks insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucks or click the link in the show notes. And if you want to support the show, help us out, but you don't want to be an insider, just leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. Just like the liking on YouTube, those 5-star reviews help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.